So, Don Young is just passed away, and I had earlier, talked about running for the House of Representatives. I really think it's sort of like the term limit stuff. It kind of sucks because it's really depriving us of due process in terms of like an election. Uh, and sort of one of my criticisms before when I was talking about, I did a couple of videos a few months ago, was not really criticisms of Don. It was also criticisms of Don's competition. And I was like, I don't think any of these people are going to beat him. Number one, I think the term limits thing is big. Number two, he shouldn't be there still. And I also said I think he does probably 99.9% of the things good in terms of representing Alaska, but that he was sort of veering into some socialist stuff, and he was not really fighting the good fight. Like the censorship stuff we've seen with big tech. Like even right now, you can look at like the Full Send podcast, the Nelk Boys. They did a big interview with ex-president Donald Trump, and he mentioned something about like election fraud or integrity or something like that, and they can't even put it on YouTube. You know what I mean? So it gets taken down by YouTube. Really, sort of ridiculous, I think, especially with, I think the January 6th thing, contextually compared to all of the BLM and Antifa protests where we saw cities burn all over the place, it really wasn't that big of a thing. And honestly, we can sort of be critical of the Capitol. The National Guard, whoever's managing it, running that, should have had more security in place, and they shouldn't have been opening the gate. We could go yada, yada, yada. I'm not excusing anyone's actions. I never would have done what they did anywhere. You know what I mean? I would never would have dressed up and done some of that shit. But still, you know what I mean? So I'm just trying to say, the big tech censorship's a big one, and I was like, Don, we need someone who's going to lead the challenge. I mean, this is the dean of the House. Someone needs to be doing that, and someone still needs to do that. So that's not something that has gone away. Now that we're worried about Ukraine, right? Because COVID's not on the plate in terms of the mainstream media shaping the narrative of what's a big concern. But we've got inflation, we've got gas prices. I also talked about that kind of thing, the inflation, the gas prices, and I was like, we need someone with the energy for the young people. Now, but here's where I'm at though. Because Don was there so long, and R.I.P. Don Young. Like I said, I wish he had written a freaking book. I wish we had been more responsible in terms of the nation, and not just leaving this guy, like a sled dog in the harness until he tips over and dies. You know what I mean? We had taken him out. We'd be able to let him retire first and let him move on, do some other things. Like I said, he could have written a book and talked about everything that's happened while he was in office there in terms of the trajectory of our entire country, and it would have been a great contribution for everyone's understanding of the history in the last 50, 60 years, 49 years. What an amazing accomplishment, right? But then the other side of it is like, Putin's been in power for 20 years, right? Over there in Russia. We don't need people in power for 20 or 30 years in Congress and the Senate, president. We don't need that. We need to cycle people through. It's term limits. But there's what I'm trying to say is, though, I'm sure there are good things. Being there that long, he's able to see the context and stuff like that. But still, it's an unfortunate thing that the guy, I think, was literally still working, 88 years old when he passed. I mean, there's something, just because he wants to be there, we should have been more proactive, and it's just not right. You know what I mean? Not right, not fair for him, not fair for the young people, but not fair for us as a state where we're at right now. Where who's going to step in? Who's gonna run? Like I was saying before, and I was kind of like, I was thinking of doing it. I was thinking of just taking, like I said on Twitter just a minute ago, I was thinking of, it was more just like, because he's become part of the infrastructure and the identity of our state and just challenging DC. I was just up for the challenge. You know what I mean? But I do see like someone needs to right the wrongs. I'm talking about like the big tech censorship. I'm talking about like how Don Young was kind of fearing socialists and stuff like that. So someone needs to be doing that stuff. Like, there's great, there's things that that I think need to be changed, but I don't think we need career politicians necessarily to do it. I don't think, we really needed Don to be a career politician like he was, but I don't think like now I'm not necessarily sure that the right step for Alaska or America is to have some career politician moving there and try to stay there for a decade plus or 30, 40 years. We got to be careful with what we're going to do. But I was just glancing at the Twitter stream this morning. It's like, shit, they're saying, oh, there's going to be a special election, 60 or 90 days from now. And I'm just like, shit, where does this leave us? We're basically getting deprived of due process. Someone's just going to get ushered in there in a sham deal. And it's not fair for our state, because, and I think that there was an expectation Don was going to do it another 2 years. That's why I was kind of like, if this guy's going to make it for 2 more years, even me, I was like, what's my motivation level to, but again, like, it was more just the challenge of just like it was almost like more just I was going for the challenge, even with the expectation that I wouldn't make it in. That Don would be there another 2 years, but it was more just like is an artist and like a rapper and just like, but also just bringing forward the things that I my outlook, my feelings on these different topics. Like I'm talking about the big tech censorship, or like how I'm sort of critical of how Don is kind of veering into that socialist thing with the childcare. I feel like there's we don't want to make we don't want just more taxes and more higher gas prices and inflation. The Build Back Better bill, all of a sudden we're forgetting about that, right? The Build Back Better bill, and we're focusing on the Ukraine. Ukraine is the reason why we're raising our taxes. No, guys, it's not. It's because of the it's not because we're divesting in Russia. It's because it was already happening, right? It's because of the Build Back Better thing. Anyway, and I'm not like someone who hates Biden and loves Trump. I'm really not. What I mean? The hard truth is, like, I agree with some of the stuff Biden does. I agree with some of the stuff Trump does, but I don't want to silence a president or silence the guy working at the corner store if they have a opinion on the topic. So I think that big tech censorship is something, as a country, as a nation, we need to hold these private companies, because they really do shape the narrative, and they really do shape and influence what people think on all kinds of different topics and stuff. So we don't want to let them have free reign and have the power that they have, because it takes away from sort of the integrity and the values of our nation. And I went on and on about this a few months ago in a couple of videos, and I was just like, and it was really getting me spawned, because I got blocked off of Instagram for a little while. So that was part of the reason that those videos were made and that kind of thing. And that part of the reason which pushing me to think about running for office, because it's like someone needs to correct this. So, but here where we're at now. 2022. So in 60 or 90 days, there's going to be some sort of special election runoff or something like that. And I'm like, I think just logistically and economically, it's really difficult, because I think I think from my understanding, my liberal understanding is, like, I think Don Young has like a really good team around him. Like, he had a really good team. There's Austin, there's some people there. Like, there's a kid from California who was doing all the social media. But again, Don's a kid from California. But and that's sort of the thing. Like, I was kind of critical. Like, it's like I've never even shook that guy's hand, Don Young. It shows me like he's kind of distant from our state. But I was kind of critical of. But Don Young had a great team. So whoever steps in there, as long as they keep that same team around them, they're probably going to be okay for the next 2 years. But again, Don was like the dean of the House of Representatives, right? He wasn't just like some representative. He was the dean. So who's going to be the next dean? That's sort of another question for that, down in Washington, D.C. and that kind of thing. But I think, the hard truth is, like, Don really wasn't there on these international issues. He was kind of doing the voice thing back with Trump. Like, so, but, I'm just worried we're just going to, again, it just feels like it's going to be a sham election now, because of the fact that he actually died and he passed, and who knows who's going to be in there, right? So is it going to be Nick Begich just because he's got a bunch of money, or is that just going to be because, it's like spinning the fucking bottle at this point, which isn't really what we want as a state. I think we want to have more of a chance for people to actually, articulate how they feel about different issues, and sort of try to advertise what they would be doing as a leader, if they did get into the office there. So I'm kind of worried too. Like, it's just like I mean, and every single person that I saw that had declared and that kind of thing, like, I think none of them I think would be a good choice. I think they were all good people, is what I had said, but I don't think any of them were going to be like that person. You know what I mean? So it's just, and then you see the chatter on Twitter. Oh, I hope it's going to be a native. Well, guys, we're not just going to have someone do it because it's a black person. Or, we got to be careful with our nation, too. Like, people in the Supreme Court, oh, it's just a black person. So that's racist. We don't want to make sure we just put, maybe there's someone who is a native and who's not already employed with a $5 million salary working for a native corporation, who could step in and do a great job. But I can't think of that person right now myself, and I do see tons of corruption with the Native Alaskan community and the Native corporations in Alaska, and I don't think it's a question of just getting a native to be a native, but sort of my critical thing with Don and everything is like, it's someone, just get someone off the street, just get someone, send them down there 2 years, don't send them down there for life, and then get someone else and send them down there for 2 years, but it's just going to be a tough one, I think, and I think it's something where, like, it really creates an awkward dynamic, and that's why that term limits thing, we need to fix that nationally, because what if Nancy Pelosi goes next, right? You know what I mean? And someone was saying on Twitter, well, Don Young just got a booster shot. I don't know if that's true or not, but you know what I mean? I mean, the guy didn't look the picture of health. I was surprised he was 88 years old and still doing everything he's did, But and it puts more pressure on us all. I think, you know what I mean, to watch our health and to be very cognizant. Get out to exercise and don't eat tons of bad food and you know what I mean, and all that stuff. Everything does, really. COVID does everything, but again, it's just like, so where does this leave us? You know what I mean? But we need to, but forget about all this stuff in Alaska and Danya. We need to fix the term limits thing, because what if Pelosi dies next? What if Joe Biden dies? We need to have some freaking integrity, and we need to have more young people coming up. You know what I mean, in politics. It can't just be the same guy there for 50 years. But I look at the state level, the representatives, the legislators. I just, I don't even. But part of me at this point, it's like I just gather, it's like we need better people, So I don't know. We need people who are going to tackle the right things, fight the good fight, and be smart and be diplomatic, and understand it's not white and black. It's like I'm someone who's like, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, Joe Biden is the reason for the gas price, or Trump's going to drop the gas. I know better than that. I know the complexity of. And sort of the nuances of how things go down, influence them, and different factors. And it's like we need freedom of speech. We need to go back to the U.S. Constitution, the founding of our country, and shape our future based on those values and those things, and preserve and fight for those things. That's what it's all about for me. I don't necessarily, might be better off just right on YouTube and on the social media and doing my $1 class race and continuing as an artist and that kind of thing. But it's one of those things where it's like it's just it's a mess, and it didn't have to be a mess like this, and we should have been smarter. Not even if we didn't even do the term limits thing, we should have been smarter as a state to have someone else in there before it got to this point. I think so. We there is some responsibility and ownership, I think, on the state of Alaska. This guy's been there for 49 years just because he wants to be there. I don't think he was doing the best job at his last few years there. I don't think he was necessarily doing the best job. So, but again, it's still an election. He was winning the election, so we can't just say, oh well, it's not Don's fault. It's the state's fault that we didn't have other candidates. Previously at a level to compete and to win against Don. And I think frankly, just in terms of a debate, again, like he was part of the identity and the infrastructure of our state and part of the history. So for me, it was like, oh, there's a river to go down, or there's a mountain to climb, or there's there's something to test yourself against. And that was sort of part of the appeal of the idea of running against Don, not necessarily even to make it to Washington D.C. I probably could have, but it was more just. It was about going against Don, but it was about going against Don because I really had emotion and feeling, for fighting for those values, for the U.S. Constitution, what we founded our country on, all that stuff. So, and going against like the socialistic stuff that he was kind of veering left on was, and he wasn't elected for that stuff, and all the Build Back Better, that him and Murkowski went for, and sort of abandoned their party and all that stuff. So it's like one of those things that like right now we're like 60, 90 days, we're just going to sham someone in there, but then is there going to be another election in the autumn? What are we doing? This isn't a good, smart, rational process. I'm sure his staff though has a really good handle on shit. It sounds like, and is pretty functional and pretty able, regardless of who else would get ushered in there to probably get the job done, which is nice. It's like these Iditarod mushers we were just all talking about, the Iditarod, and Iditarod musher. You could take the Iditarod musher off and Hanover probably could do a pretty good job, So maybe we just need to get that guy who's the Austin Brown is doing John Young's social media and elect him and say, hey, dude, hey, you're in, but you're not going to be in there forever. So make sure you don't fuck up. And we're gonna make you guys. You can do it for the next little bit. Just sort of interesting because he's from California, like Don Young, and he's not He's ties to Alaska. I mean, who cares? You know what I mean? It's just like at some point I kind of see. That's why I was kind of seeing what they were saying about dying. At some point, you need someone. It's like an attorney representing you down at a different place. You need someone who can just like understand and navigate all that legislation and all those bills and everything like that, and just like make the right choices for the state. But at some point, it's like for me, it's like it's not just about sending money to the state. Because circling back to the Build Back Better thing, we're going into debt. So inflation is happening. the Build Back Better thing is the reason for a lot of that, and also COVID and other things too. But it's not Ukraine, and maybe it will be Ukraine now because we're spending billions of money to Ukraine, which is maybe a great cause. But again, there's all the history of the Donbass region, and all those volunteer people from the Ukraine out there fighting the Russians, and there's all kinds of conflict and stuff going on there. And the I mean, it's a very complex thing. So we don't want to oversimplify. I think what I mean. Oh, Ukraine, the bad Russians and the good Ukrainians. We don't want to oversimplify, but we want to prevent those things from happening. We want to prevent Russia from just taking Crimea, now taking Ukraine, taking. We don't want to let them continue to be emboldened, but we have to sort of pick our own. We had to sort of pick our own battles, but it was a shit show how we pulled out of Afghanistan. Someone else was saying that on the media. It was done wrong. Biden did it wrong. Biden might be doing a great choice, I think, up in Alaska by saying, hey, we're not going to, do the Assembly Road, but Biden fucked up Afghanistan. We're not saying pulling out was a bad thing. We're just saying, leaving all those weapons and for the enemy is a bad thing to do. So we needed to do it. When we do something, it's not just about doing something, it's about doing it in an intelligent way so that it doesn't have a bad effect. It's just like everything. So, we've just got to be careful here. I don't think it's something where like you see the people on the media, oh, this is going to be fun, this is going to be interesting. These people aren't like, I don't think their concern level is high enough because we want to make sure the House of Representatives needs to be a functional body, and we need to make sure someone who's actually going to be a good leader for everyone in Alaska. That's sort of one of Don Young's pitches. He's like, oh, I'm a leader for everyone, but was he really? You know what I mean? In the later years, was he really? Because the Build Back Better thing, I think, in Murkowski also, going so extreme liberal and abandoning their party and abandoning their voters, the people who voted them in, it's really problematic because they're the reason the gas prices are up. They're the reason that's given us a hard time here. A part of that, and also the COVID and just the whole market's bouncing back after the COVID, the scarcity. Other prices were low, so now the price is going to go back up and everything like that. But it's not. It's not. I'm not going to listen to people tell me it's Ukraine. I'm not going to listen to people telling me that we want our elected Republican people to. We need all this money for these bridges in Alaska. We need all this money for infrastructure renovations and stuff like that. It's just it'll go to executive salaries. We'll have 3 people standing on a shovel watching the one guy work. It's the same shit everywhere. Everything's fine. You know what I mean? We need to be just like I did my little thing where I fixed my laptop cable, and I put the thing on the thing. And I was like, I don't need a new $80 laptop cable. I just need to fucking rewire that piece of shit, and it's still gonna work. And it's what? It's holding up. It's charging right now, and it still works fine. So, there's a point where we don't need to just be always just getting something new, throwing it out, and I'm not saying like if you were the House of Representative, you would want to get as much money as you could for your state, right? But I'm just saying when you're talking about like Murkowski and Don Young crossing the line to vote Democrat for this big freaking Build Back Better thing, and being the ones who made it happen, and our state needs the money. Well, everyone's always going to be wanting to take the money, right? We're always going to need more money if we can get the free money. But the problem is, what effects does that have for us, for the younger generation, for the future generation? All of a sudden, well, there's inflation, right? The highest inflation since 30 years, 30, 40 years going on. And we got $6 in California. We got $5, $4, and above that, gas prices. And damn, that hits the lower class harder. That hits the lower income people harder because you're driving 30 miles back and forth. And it really is locking us down. And it's having, and not just that, the price of all these other goods is going up too. Really having a profound effect on the economy. It's affecting me. I'll tell you right now, it's affecting me. So I'm sure it's affecting other people too. And I'm not someone who's, it's just like it's mind-boggling to me that that this is the situation that we're in. In the state of Alaska and in the nation too, because it's just that the dean of the House is gone too. It's like, there's going to have to be a new dean, but Pelosi too. Pelosi needs to sort of graduate out of that too, because what if Pelosi goes, and these people, what if Biden goes, we need to have more people coming up, good people who are like smart, reasonable, rational, and can navigate complex issues, because like all this shit went down with the Build Back Better, but now we're sending just as much freaking money to Ukraine. You know what I mean? And and did we anticipate that when we did the Build Back Better? Is there just, where does this money coming from? You know what I mean? So it's like our future, and then we're doing the Afghanistan thing where we're just leaving the freaking shed out there, and it's just like, I don't know, this shit can be, someone could be doing this better. I think Joe Schmo in the corner store could have done that better. The guy who's managing the gas station who could do this better, literally, honestly, or the guy with a small construction company, or just the guy who works for the guy at the gas station, the smoke, common sense, right? Common sense needs to be utilized better in Washington, D.C., but also utilized better in Alaska. And so, yeah, well, I guess just to do a quick video and just to kind of make some comments on it because it happened. And again, like, very much that individual, Don Young, was part of identity and infrastructure in the state of Alaska, and obviously, a witness to so much history for the nation of Alaska. But I think the term limits thing, it really just makes even more sense because now he's gone. It's like, and we're all going to be. It's going to be sort of a sham rush election here to get someone in, and it deprives us of that due process for the real election. But then it also is, once that person gets in, it's probably going to be difficult to fight them, to get them out of that position. So it deprives us of the due process, and it's just sort of it's just a sad thing. But I mean, it's yeah, should I do it or not? I mean, at this point, I don't even know what it would entail. I think before I sort of learned about it, and it's like in June 1st or something like that. But now it's like on such a short notice, it's making it hard. It would make it difficult to get organized, and I think for anyone really at this point, because even the people who are already declaring, already running, like the Nick Begich and some of the other people, this is all of a sudden changing the time window from like 9 months preparation to a year preparation to 60 to 90 days preparation. So it's a very different series of dynamics and variables that will be at play now, which could very much influence the outcome in either a positive or negative way. I'm not going to say it's good or bad, but I'm just going to say it definitely changes it. You know what I mean? It changes the situation. So